Got it. Okay, Cyber. Let's pick up right where we were at, and we're good.
So, hello everyone out there in the streaming world and live stream world. Welcome to our live stream. We actually were in the middle of starting the live stream and didn't realize we were live. So, if you're coming in on this at the wrong time, we'll just kind of get you up to speed here. So, we've been talking about the intro to the episode of Loki, episode 6, talking about how they showed the timelines and all the craziness going on, and we all each gave kind of a little bit of our thoughts on that process. And now we're talking about Miss Minutes and just what how we felt about Miss Minutes, like where we thought she stood from the beginning of the show to coming into this episode, because we all of a sudden see her pop up at where He Who Remains is living. And so we were basically just going through that and catching everyone up to speed. We know that Jonathan Majors is playing a specific character in this episode, and we should be seeing him again in the future in the MCU. And we're just going to keep going with that. So, Alexis, what do you think about Miss Minutes? What was your thoughts on Miss Minutes?
I had a feeling we'd be seeing her again, but that's because I follow Tara Strong on Twitter. I follow a ton of voice actors on Twitter, and first of all, she's a very opinionated woman, and she is a massive animal rights activist. So she has a very interesting feed. So, I recommend checking out her Twitter page. But she did drop a few hints. It's like there's more to Miss Minutes than meets the eye. And I had a feeling they weren't going to go with she was, I don't know, like another Loki variant or something. I thought that would have been a funny twist, but I didn't think they were going to do it. But based on what she said, I was like, yeah, something tells me we're going to keep seeing this character. Not to mention, you have one of the greatest voice actresses currently working. Yeah, you're going to use her.
Very true, very true. And the fact that she kept popping up in different episodes, we knew kind of like she was going to be kind of an integral part of, something going on in the background, the man behind the curtain, as Lord Deathman and Taylor both have mentioned in the past. Jeff, what are your thoughts on Miss Minutes?
Well, I completely, totally was off on the Miss Minutes deal, because I totally felt like we probably wouldn't even see Miss Minutes again in the series. I really didn't even expect her to pop up in the finale. I was surprised as I was surprised with a lot of things that happened in the finale. I was really surprised and shocked to see her just like pop up right off the bat like that. I felt like she seemed different to me. Like the way that like Tara Strong portrayed Miss Minutes, or like how she sounded, she seemed like she had more of a personality, or like more character almost to me. Like and when she was explaining to like Sylvie and Loki and everything what all like the One Who Remains could offer them and everything, I think that everything she was saying was tangible. I think that those were valid offers. I understand why they didn't like realize that and why they balked and everything. I don't blame them, but I mean, I realistically believe that like those were things that they could have given them. Like I think the One Who Remains, or Kang, or whatever you want to call him, definitely has the power and the ability to have done exactly what she offered to them. And I feel like it'll be interesting to know in season 2 what Miss Minutes gave Ravonna Renslayer when she gave her whatever information or downloaded whatever on her temp pad. It'll be interesting to know what information she shared with Ravonna Renslayer, just because I don't want to get too far ahead, but it seems like Ravonna Renslayer really doesn't know what the hell's going on, just like nobody, and nobody else really knew what was going on in terms of the TVA. Like, she didn't know about Kang. She didn't know who was, she didn't know who was running the TVA. She just like strongly believes, for whatever reason, in their mission. And so, I mean, I guess as far as Miss Minutes goes, like Alexis said, I think that the voice acting is great, like with the character and everything. It's been a fun character in the show and everything, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of role Miss Minutes plays in season 2.
Very much so, very much so. We actually have a comment from Mr. David R. Hi, David R. Thanks for stopping by the live. He says, the statues at the arrival have the clock face of Miss Minutes. That is some amazing respect for an AI interface. She finally got to be entirely honest in this episode, which I totally agree with that. I did notice at the, when they did arrive, that there was the clock-looking statues and so forth, and that I was figuring that was referring to Miss Minutes. I think that's totally a really good, interface and respect, and I think a great way of sending off Miss Minutes. Because, I remember in the very first episode when we got introduced to Miss Minutes, I knew I wanted to see Miss Minutes throughout this whole entire series, because I just found her very fascinating and just fun to look at. So I think that's a great comment, David. All right, so basically we get that introduction from Miss Minutes. There, she's basically trying to entice them, basically, as she's like, oh, you can have the world how you want it and this and that, and both the Lokis are not buying it, and they proceed on through the castle, and that's when they get introduced to He Who Remains. Now, He Who Remains, as soon as he popped up, as soon as it showed him, I was kind of like thinking to myself, I wonder who this is gonna be, because I had heard that they had cast Kang, they had cast somebody to play that particular character. But I actually I did not realize that he was actually African American. I had no idea that this actor was, because I hadn't seen any pictures of him. So I was kind of like shocked when I first saw him, like, oh, who is this guy? Until they started saying He Who Remains. So I want to know what your guys' reactions were when those doors opened and they showed this great actor. So let's start off with you, Lord Deathman. What did you think?
I think my mind and my heart sort of just fell into this sub-basement of total wonder and amazement. Jonathan Majors is a fantastic actor. I can't say that I've been tracking his career since the very beginning, but I did see him in The Five Bloods. I did see his work in Lovecraft Country. So I knew he was fairly talented. And when the announcement kind of came down that he was going to be playing Kang in Quantumania in the Ant-Man film, I said to myself, you know what? At this point, I think we're at a point with trust in the Marvel brand where I don't need to lose sleep over the fact that they did a race bend on Kang or anything like this. But I have to tell you, and all of my fellow champions on the Podcast of Champions and on the Sakar message board will tell you, Deathman bet against Kang in this series. and I told everybody, look, if he shows up, I will be like a kid in a candy store. I would love to, but I kind of felt like, gun shy because of WandaVision and all the Mephistoing that went on there. I was like, they're probably going to save him for the big screen and we're going to see him in Ant-Man in a proper theatrical release. But when they opened that door, I was literally dumbstruck. My jaw was on the ground. And then, without missing a beat, Majors just gives you this incredible performance as what I'm going to call He Who Remains / Immortus. And to bring you to the end of Kang's journey first, my brain was just totally Cool Whip. And I was like, this is how you sci-fi and fantasy in the franchise, right? This is how you do it. Incredible. I loved his rendition of kind of Immortus, kind of weary, but somewhat insane from the isolation, his back and forth. I mean, you get on a soundstage with somebody like Tom Hiddleston and Martino, you're not there with slouches, and Majors totally commands that stage. But to really address the parts where you start to talk about race, there's always a lot of conversation around inclusion. There's always a lot of conversation around representation. for me, this is kind of a race blind sort of situation. I think they found a great actor to play the part. It is kind of, cool that the invisible hand that has guided all of time in the MCU and is the architect of existence is a man of African descent. I think that's totally cool. But as far as I'm concerned, they just found the right guy for the job. And Ant-Man Quantumania shot to the top of my list with a bullet as the number one MCU movie that I have to see now because of what Majors managed to do in this episode.
Nice. Yeah, and just to clarify that, what I was saying before is I just didn't realize that, Majors, who he was. So when I finally saw him for the first time in this, I was just kind of blown away because I've always known Kang as a blue guy. So like him being this like just this normal looking black guy, I was like who is this? So I had no clue. So it had nothing to do with actually that, I could care less than who he is. I just think that blew me away because I had no idea who he was. So I think that was a great new send-off to an introduction to this character. So Taylor, what do you think about that beginning scene, all of a sudden that door opening and seeing He Who Remains?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is I knew it was the actor who had been cast to play Kang. So I knew it was Kang. But people who don't follow the MCU news as closely as we do may still not know that that's Kang because I don't think they ever said the name Kang in the episode. So there may be people out there who have no idea who this person is.
He dropped a few lines about being a conqueror.
He did say
never said the
Yep. Again, depending on how well you know the comics and how closely you follow, which a large part of the MCU audience don't follow the comics very closely. So I think there's a lot of people who won't know at this point. And there's a lot of people who are aware that he's Kang, but don't know all the details of all the different iterations of Kang in the comics as well. You put me in that boat. I've only seen like one or two iterations of Kang and only very little of it. But the actor, he did a great job. I've seen him in other things, but only in small parts. I haven't seen any of his big roles. And in this one episode, he did a fantastic job. And I loved I didn't mention it earlier, but the setting, the design of the castle, both inside and out, was amazing. On the outside, it looks like a Bavarian castle, like Neuschwanstein, if you've ever been there. But of course, it's in a haunted forest on a mountaintop, like something out of Lord of the Rings. Something like that. And then on the inside is this huge cavernous hall with giant statues, timekeepers, and all this other stuff. And then and you can see from the outside, you can see that there was one tower that went up above, where there was an enlarged room up there. And I'm assuming that's where they ended up going throughout. And so, not to get ahead of where we are now, I loved that, and I think the actor portrayal of Kang was spot on.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I would totally agree. He was very good. I mean, he was super funny, I thought, and just gave a really great delivery. So I really enjoyed his performance, and just like a great introduction to, this character, He Who Remains, who, like we said, he's never been mentioned as Kang yet, but he has been mentioned as the Conqueror. So, I mean, that was kind of a big giveaway there. So what are your thoughts on this scene, Alexis?
I really didn't think Marvel was going to go this way. Again, similar to what Lord Death mentioned, I figured that this was going to be a Mephisto switch. That it was. When people asked me who I thought was in the Citadel, I said I want it to be Kang. I want it to be Kang because we had seen so many Easter eggs, especially in the previous episode when they're wandering through the void, that were just all dropped and all were, made you think of Kang. But I really didn't think they were going to go with this. So if I had to put my money down, I'd put my money down on it's going to be another Loki variant. It's going to be the whole it was Wanda all over again thing. And when that door opened, I saw Jonathan Majors, who I didn't recognize at first. I mentioned this prior that I only know him from Lovecraft Country, which he was amazing in, but he plays such a different character. You really don't recognize him at first. And I was just like, wait a minute. And I actually pulled up the IMDb page very carefully, not to scroll ahead and look for spoilers or anything. I was like, wait, was it? That is Jonathan Majors. Oh my God. And it just kind of blew me away that they found a way to do this and introduce Kang without really introducing him. Because Marvel is smart. They're not going to introduce who is probably going to be the big bad of the new movies. You know, I have no doubt that Kang is essentially filling the role that Thanos left behind. And he is going to be the new reoccurring villain. He is going to be the new massive threat. And Marvel knows they shouldn't introduce this character in an MCU TV series. They need to introduce him in the movies. So the idea of setting him up, but not really introducing him, hinting that he's coming, but not saying his name, that is honestly pure genius writing. I was blown away by that.
Very much
also,
so. Very much.
I did want to also point out what you guys were talking about with Miss Minutes, the idea of her offering Loki the future he wanted. I think that's actually taken a little from there's a really good Loki book called The God Who Fell to Earth, where Loki basically helps save the universe, but he wants more. He doesn't want his story to be over. He says, I don't want this to be the end of my story. I want to have more. And he is given the chance to rewrite the story and become the character that he wants to be. So I highly recommend that book, by the way. It's available on Hoopla Digital. So I think they kind of took a little bit from that.
Nice. Thanks for dropping that book. Well, anyone out there in the streaming world, if you get a chance, check that out. It might be very enlightening, as it has been enlightening to us here on the MCU's Bleeding Edge. What are your thoughts on that introduction, Jeff?
Well, I mean, to kind of like, I guess, just to bounce off of like everybody else's comments, Alexis's comments, Lord Deathman's comments, I feel like it is very, I'll put it to you this way. I had a very little, thoughts really. Like I wasn't very confident that we would see Kang or we would see any version of Kang in the Loki series or in the finale. But at the same time, it made sense to me as an MCU fan. And I guess as like an amateur content creator that, likes to critique film and and TV and everything, it kind of made sense to me, like, for them to drop Jonathan Majors into the series. Like, it really did kind of make sense in a way. Like, I get it. And I think it really with what we've experienced with the pandemic and everything, and like the whole, like, almost 2 years without an MCU film, thank God for Black Widow, of course. And hats off to the whole, everybody behind Black Widow, because they did an excellent job making that film. That is neither here nor there. Essentially, I feel like it's interesting to me that they went ahead and decided to do an Immortus version, like Lord Deathman said, of Kang, to start things off, like to introduce him, because I don't want to get too comic book detailed or anything like that, or get out of the sphere we're in terms of what, our dialogue. But I feel like it's important to point out that Immortus is like the oldest variant of Kang, essentially, from the comic books. Like, he's the variant of Kang that like Jonathan Majors said in the finale, that he said I've been alive for millions of years or whatever. Like, Immortus has been around forever. Like, he kind of, and that's kind of where the character comes from in the comics. And I think it's really interesting. It's very great decision making and great storytelling that they decided to go ahead and throw him in like that, as kind of that version. And again, like Alexis has also said, the fact that Marvel's does such a great job of rolling these characters into like one character, like they do a good job of making sure that they're cross-referencing the comic books. They're still trying to like put those comic book ties into these, productions, but but at the same time, where they need to, they're not afraid to take two characters and put them into one character, you know, like if they have to make it work, to make it flow. And what I think of when I think of that whole situation is the fact that there are people out there who get pissed off at Marvel and at Kevin Feige for not being enough comic book accurate enough sometimes with the films and like with the series. And I feel like, look, I love the comics. That's my background. Like that's what I knew before there was ever an MCU. I knew these characters from the pages of my comic books. But still, I don't really understand sometimes how people can't grasp that the only way to make this stuff work, like from a cinematic standpoint, is to make these moves that they make, that Marvel makes with these characters. You know, you can't give everybody a perfect comic book accurate portrayal of these stories and these characters. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And I think it's an important point to kind of flush out there. And I'm of course, like, you know, open things up, you know, in terms of anybody else's feedback on that, you know, thought. But I mean, basically I felt like I knew that it was Jonathan Majors immediately, the minute that like the elevator or whatever popped open, and the doors open and everything. I knew it was obvious to me who he was. I just couldn't figure out what the hell he was doing in the show. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like I said before, like, you know, without the outfit on, without the costume, without like any makeup or anything, I'm like, why is there just like a like naked version of regular version of Jonathan, you know, Majors in the finale? Like, what's he doing here? Like, you know, this isn't Kang. So I didn't know what to think. I mean, you know, but I liked it. It was interesting. And I mean, basically I felt like at that point in the show, I didn't know what the hell was going to happen, which is always fun. You know, like I was blown away by like him popping up you know, being behind the door. And what I really loved was seeing the faces of Sylvie and Loki reacting to like the fact that that's what they were like, getting out of like coming to that castle and everything and getting past Alioth and all that crap. Like all they end up with is just some freaking like regular black dude.
Very true, very true, very true. So, I mean, that brings us, you know, to what David R. has said here in the comments about the apple. They end up going to Loki and Sylvie end up going into the elevator with He Who Remains, and he's eating an apple, and he says that he feels it's a fun fruit of knowledge nod. He proceeds to mind blow both Lokis and the audience. No one eating the apple now, which I think is a really great point too as well, because that is kind of a nod, because if he is, you know, officially Kang, and he is this older version of Immortus, like we've been talking about, he's been around for, millions of years, so that would kind of make him like Adam and Eve, like God, basically. So, I mean, that is a great nod, and I think that's a really great point by David. David has also mentioned another comment, and I'll get to that shortly here, David, when I talk a little bit more about that. But so now that they're in the elevator, he's eating the apple, they go to his house, you know, to his room now, and they start talking a little bit. Then it kind of pans over, and then we go to seeing Ravonna and Mobius. All of a sudden comes into the picture. They kind of pan away from that. And so I'm sure a lot of people were kind of like wondering, like, you know, all of a sudden we see Ravonna again. We see Mobius, you know, at the TVA. We weren't sure if we were going to see Mobius again because we knew he went back to the TVA, but we really weren't sure, like, in what capacity they would show him. So, like, they start talking, and, you know, he's like, you know, they're basically bickering back and forth. And I just think that this was a really great scene between Mobius and Ravonna. But then I think there's a really interesting little thing kind of come up that, you know, gives more insight to who Ravonna is. So what my question is for you guys is, what did you think about that 2018 little tidbit that they end up bringing into this scene? Let's start with you, Lord Deathman.
Yeah, I thought that was extremely interesting. I've been one of the people that thought that Renslayer, while acted excellently by Mbatha-Raw, I thought I want to know more about this character. I want to know, where does this loyalty and allegiance to the TVA come through? And this kind of gave me a little bit of a slice of that without kind of giving me like opening up the kimono fully. But I find it extremely interesting that this all kind of begins at a high school in Ohio in 2018. Like, what was her deviation on a cosmic level in that role? And of course, we have to give teachers all the love and respect in the world that we can. But what was it that a teacher at a high school in Ohio did to sort of, get the attention of the TVA and to get recruited as a variant? Just backtracking for a minute, though, I wanted to point out just how insightful Jeff's comments were around the streamlining. Jeff and Alexis, I have to give you both credit for this in terms of talking about how Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige and all their producers there streamline these things and take really complicated ideas, a lot of history. We're talking 6-7 decades worth of storytelling and put it together, just get at the fundamentals of each of those characters. And that's extremely important. So while I was trying to put together my reading list before Loki, because I was like, oh, my Kang might show up. So now I got to start hunting back into the crates. And okay, Rama Tut. And then he was the Scarlet Centurion. And then he was Kang. And then he was Immortus. I'm 63 books deep in. You can't expect this from casuals. But at the same time, they didn't dumb it down. There's still a richness with the character as we get further on discussing the rest of the episode. But yes, back to Renslayer. Thought that was a very intriguing twist. I don't know if that's going to pick up in season 2. I'm hoping that we get more story out of her because she's hard to peg. I want to say it would be easy to just write her off as an antagonist and a bad guy who's just a sociopath. But she really seems to buy into this dogma and this doctrine. And she wasn't completely in on it. She did not know who He Who Remains was. She didn't know who was behind the whole thing, but she's so rigid and so dogmatic in her thinking that she feels that it is absolutely necessary that all of existence have a project manager, But yeah, those are my thoughts on that. I would really like to see more on that in season 2.
Nice. Thank you. How about you, Taylor? What did you think?
Well, my only real thoughts on that was I thought it was a really clever way for Mobius to prove to the other folks at the TVA that they were actually variants and they were not created by the TVA, by showing them their own boss as a normal human in the real world on the timeline doing normal things. So that was really my only takeaway from it. One, it was interesting to see that she was a school teacher, but I just thought it was a really clever way to bring down the TVA by showing, holding up the mirror and showing them the truth that we weren't all created by the timekeepers to run the TVA. We were taken out of other lives.
Very true. Very true. What did you have to say, Jeff?
Well, just going off of what Lord Deathman just pointed out with Ravonna Renslayer in terms of trying to theorize what's going on with that character and everything. And yes, I think that Gugu Mbatha-Raw has done a great job with that character. Maybe not hasn't done anything outstanding that really kind of brings the spotlight to her or anything. But I feel like we've yet to get everything that they're going to be showing us with that character. I think in season 2 they're really going to open her up, and there's a lot going on with her that we don't know about yet. And I think that her rigid devotion to the TVA and to the mission of the sacred timeline and the ethos of the TVA and everything, I feel fits in perfectly with her potentially later on having some type of relationship with Kang, one of the versions of Kang in some way, just like the comics. I could see how that could be a springboard, that could be the connection or the tie where you end up having that relationship develop later on with a version of Kang where, potentially maybe the next version of Kang that's trying to restore the universe and the timeline. Just He Who Remains was whoever that ends up being. I feel that'll be a really nice basis potentially for like Ravonna Renslayer and that version of Kang to connect on like shared ideals, you know, and shared beliefs. Because she is so focused on the mission of the TVA and everything. I mean, she literally said in the finale, like, essentially, like, I don't care if I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, this is important. This still matters. Like, we still need to do this. Like, even when Mobius was like, hey, like, we can fix this. We can like change this. We can make this work. Like, I thought that was kind of surprising. That kind of shocked me a little bit. That he, like, I really kind of felt like he was going to come back to the TVA and be like looking to whoop ass. So I was kind of surprised that he was like actually trying to offer her like a you know, an out, like a you know, a peace deal, and still trying to like retain their friendship in a way, you know, like it's obvious that like they both meant something to each other at some point. But I'm just wondering kind of like, where, I mean, what are the motivations of this character? Like realistically, like besides like her devotion to the TVA, every human being like has other desires and wants and everything. Look at Mobius with his jet skis and shit like that. You know, like, so at that point, we saw that she's basically just a human being from Ohio or whatever, that was a school teacher. So obviously, like at that point, she had a life. I'm just wondering what's going to happen when maybe like it gets put in front of her that like she is a variant, you know, like, or maybe she already like accepts that and doesn't care. I don't know. But I mean, like Lord Deathman pointed out, I think that it's very, very interesting wondering what the hell could have happened with a school teacher on Earth that would have created the Nexus event where she would have had to be pruned. Or like not pruned, but like, you know, but like, you know, pulled out and drawn into the TVA. Like I'm really, you know, I'm really like looking forward to. I know it's like a ways away, but like we talked about earlier, Cyber, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to throw at us with season 2.
Very much so. Very much so. What are your thoughts on this, Alexis?
Honestly, you guys have kind of already covered everything that I wanted to say about that scene, but I will add how interesting it was that the actress Gugu seemed to fit into the role of a school teacher. According to Wikipedia here, she was a vice principal. It just, I don't know, just something about the way she acted, the way she looked, the way she was dressed, and everything was just like, you look like a vice principal. You look like a school teacher. Just like, yeah, I could see her in that role pretty easily.
Very believable.
I would agree. Yeah, most definitely.
I think she has a lot of range. I don't mean to cut you off, Cyber, but I think that Gugu Mbatha-Raw as an actress, I think she has a lot of range because I think she's a very exotically attractive woman on one hand. And I think, you know, we haven't really seen her depicted in anything where, you know, we would look at her that way. But I think she is, like, from what I've seen of her outside of the show, she is like a very uniquely attractive woman as far as I'm concerned. And she's kind of buttoned up and everything in the series. But I think she's very affable as an actress. I feel like she has a lot of range as opposed to like Owen Wilson.
Interesting.
She's a really great actress. I've seen her in several other things. She's excellent.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys know she's an English actress.
Yes.
Yep. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, English accent and everything. And I know we can consider Wilson like a one-trick pony, but the trick works really well here.
Oh, Cyber loves talking about that, Lord Deathman. He does.
Oh yes, so much so. Yeah, I mean, he like I said in a previous episode reviews, to me, Owen Wilson is the exact same in every movie that he's in. Like you were saying, one trick pony, and I mean, he does do a decent job in this. Like he's decent, but I swear every movie I've seen him in since Anaconda, Armageddon, you know, I Spy with Eddie Murphy and stuff like that, it's always the same type of thing. I think the only real movie he really deviates from and is kind of a little different is in the Zoolanders, and then this. But that's pretty much it. Like, he's usually just the same, you know.
What about the Royal Tenenbaums? Wasn't he in the Royal Tenenbaums?
He was.
Yeah, but I feel he's the same in that.
it was a very small role to boot. How about his role as Lightning McQueen?
Once again, I felt it was Owen Wilson.
He was in I think it was a war picture called Behind Enemy Lines. And it was
my God!
how did he get in
right.
this?
Wow.
With Gene Hackman, yeah.
Yes, that
I
was
enjoyed
a
him
great
in that.
movie.
Yeah.
He was good. He was good in that.
Lord Deathman, way to point that out, Taylor. You're right. That was an awesome movie. Like he was actually really good as an action,
Yes.
character. You know, I mean that was a great film.
Interesting. Anyway, so as we go on here, so we have that conversation. We get a little bit of more conversation between He Who Remains, and then of course, after we saw a little bit of Ravonna and Mobius talking, it kind of pans back to them, Sylvie, Loki, and He Who Remains, and they're talking a little bit more, and you get a little bit more information and stuff like that, and then it's kind of interesting how all of a sudden they're talking different scenarios and stuff like that, and He Who Remains kind of starts going in and talking a little bit about his story a little bit, and I think this is a great way to transition the episode. I really enjoyed it because he almost goes full figure, showing how kind of what the story is, and I like that. I don't know if a lot of you noticed, but he has that round stone that's on his hand that he uses to use and do different things with. And when he starts doing the claymation thing, showing kind of his story, the offshoots and stuff like that of the other supposed Kangs or He Who Remains, it made me totally think about in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 when Ego starts doing the same thing, showing his plan. It totally made me think of that, and I thought it was really cool how they did that and so forth. But what I'm getting at here is, what did everyone think about him kind of explaining who he kind of is? Because this is the part where he kind of goes, I've been known by many names. I've been known as Conqueror. I've been known as this and that. So I was just curious as to what everyone thought about kind of how that conversation really kind of developed and worked in the interest of the episode. So let's start with you, Lord Deathman.
That was perhaps my favorite part of the episode, and it's a highlight among an episode filled with highlights. Having Jonathan Majors as Immortus, or He Who Remains, sit down and tell you the story of Kang. I kind of felt all of the same feelings and emotions when I kind of first read the early tales of Kang in the comic books. I'm like, this is really happening. He's talking about being a chrononaut from the 31st century, talking about how he encountered himself, how he discovered a layered multiverse. I have to say, I'm obviously a huge Marvel fan. I like DC as well too. I like the MCU. I've always loved what they've been doing for the most part. And when I thought about this and how that story was being told, I was like, the stakes have just never been higher in science fiction and fantasy in any franchise I could think of in a long time. They are about to unfurl existence, right? It's like usually the stakes are, I got to go rescue my girlfriend, save the city, maybe stop the planet from blowing up. Maybe I got to stop the galaxy from getting disintegrated, or maybe I got to save half of all life throughout the universe. Here, there's nothing short of all of existence at stake. And just to have Kang set up as this invisible hand that has been guiding the architecture of this entire system of the MCU, it works on so many different layered levels. And you would think that a franchise like this would have to exceed by showing you this through action, but they did it with simple exposition. This is crafted like a stage play. People are sitting down in front of each other, having a conversation that's probably about to set the next 5 to 7 years of the MCU in motion. I just think that people are underestimating the gravity of that conversation. And I know that it was kind of tropey because we see Black Panther use the sort of anamorphic holograms to tell a story. They did it in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It's not necessarily a new trope, but I think it was executed very well in miniatures because Kang likes to tell that smaller story. But it was also just beautifully animated when you see him double up and interface with himself, and he's designing the resets and temp pads, and you get the feeling just through Major's delivery about this exchange of knowledge that then just led to a catastrophe when some of the more aggressive and hostile variants of himself came into play. I just can't think of it. I mean, guys, you could call me out and say, you know what? Well, Kev, I saw an episode of Doctor Who that was just like that. You could say that and totally, that Kevin had developed, that copied something that came before. But truthfully, I'm really finding it. I'm gonna be so curious to see how DC answers this multiversal proposal that Marvel has put out. How are they going to tackle it? Because I think the MCU has done an outstanding job of delivering on this concept, and this was an incredible episode.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, that I would totally agree with you there. Most definitely. That brings me to the comment that David R. Brought up earlier that I said I would re-mention. He says he knew every action and conversation up to a certain point of the conversation. How many dozens of paired Lokis had preceded Sylvie and Loki to have every dodge in place? Which is a really good question, because in that scene where I'm talking about and we're talking about here, Kang brings out those papers showing, I knew every move. That's why I'm able to dodge every one of your swipes and so forth and stuff like that. So this has happened several other times because Kang has been, basically, or He Who Remains has been, doing this several different times now. This isn't his first rodeo. And I think that David R. has a really good point there that, he knows all these things. He does know, and that's why he is He Who Remains and so forth. So I think that's a really cool comment, David. And also, I love your other comment here about Lord Deathman actually got one of you to drop an Owen Wilson wow with that comment, which is hilarious. That's totally that wow, and it's just real fun there that, we finally got that wow from him, even though we didn't get it from him in the actual series. And it's just really enjoyable, that whole concept too. I think it's just great. But yeah, Taylor, what did you think about that scene?
Well, that scene, just the MCU never ceases to amaze me at how, and this is just one example, but how well they are able to do exposition, which most writers find to be the hardest thing to do. But they are able to do it in such a way that it is clear, it is not wordy, it is not boring, it is not long-winded, and it manages to keep your attention. It's like a great school teacher, getting their students involved in the lesson. That's how the MCU is able to do exposition of these extremely complex ideas and notions and thousands of years of history or whatever they're talking about, and yet they're able to do it in the most simple, straightforward manner. And another example is how in Endgame, the Ancient One was able to explain time travel by drawing lights in the air and showing how when they branch, when you change something, but it doesn't change the original one. Far more clear than time travel was ever explained in any other.
Yeah. You still there?
I
Taylor?
think Taylor looks like he's frozen. But I have to say, I agreed with every word he said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully he'll come back to life.
Yes, Taylor.
But
He's
can
like
we
a
not have?
school
It's like
teacher.
I was like, can we not have a repeat of this last time I was here, where I had to host the show
Oh,
for 2
God.
minutes?
Yeah, I know, right?
Don't even remind me.
Yeah.
Lord Death, I don't know if you saw when we reviewed
I was
it.
camping on that stream, so
Okay.
my heart went out to you. I was like, but you did a great job. So
Good job. So how about you, Alexis? What did you think about that scene?
First of all, I was very impressed that they were able to explain Kang's actual backstory with him being a 31st century scientist. I am curious, since we know that we're going to get a Fantastic Four movie coming up here in the near future, if they are going to try to tie in that Kang is Nathaniel Richards, a possible descendant of Reed Richards' father. So, which also
I would
gives
lose my mind, if not to interrupt you. If that happens, I will need a full-time subscription to adult diapers. That would be incredible and awesome.
Which also begs the question, could they make, okay, it's a superficial thing, but since Kang is being played by a black actor, would it make sense to cast a black actor as Reed Richards now?
That's a good point. Very good
It's
point.
a very good point, and I think you could go either way, because as we've seen, variants can be different genders, different races. I would accept a relationship between a Kang of African descent and a Reed Richards who is Caucasian, or whatever the MCU wants to do with Reed Richards.
Not to mention the fact that over 100 years of marrying different people and, you know, breeding, for lack of better words, it is entirely possible to have an ancestor or a descendant of a completely different race.
Yeah.
You know, eventually, you know, just kind of becomes one thing.
Yep,
So-
very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, that is true. But at the same time, I won't lie to you. If they try to cast the Reed Richards character as any other color other than Caucasian, the fandom will flip the fuck out.
Yeah, they will.
Well, especially since majority of fans are still screaming for John Krasinski to be cast as Reed Richards, which admittedly, if they go with that route, I would not object.
Taylor, you're animated, man. You were
Welcome
like
back, Taylor.
He's
you were
back
the
from the
animator for a
underworld.
minute.
I don't know what happened, man. I lost connection, just dropped out of nowhere. I don't know. But
Oh man, maybe the TVA fucked up your timeline.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe
It
the
might not be-
version of
be
Taylor we were
serious.
talking. Yeah, I was gonna say maybe the version of Taylor we were talking to just got pruned and we just got a replacement.
Maybe,
right.
yeah.
You see, guys with black helmets are going to step in here and pull me away at any second.
That's right.
Very true, very true. I just
Anyway,
noticed over the... Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
I'm sorry, if I could real quick. The point I was trying to make before I got cut off, I'm not sure exactly what point I got cut off at, was how during his explanation and throughout the rest of the episode, Kang very much referred to other versions of himself as completely different people, as, you know, third person, whatever you want to call it, which tells me that this actor is going to be playing very different characters. They're not all going to look like him. They're certainly not going to act like him, especially when he keeps talking about, you know, you think I'm bad, wait till you see the other ones if you kill me and break this whole timeline. So I think that, you know, the version of Kang we get in Quantumania or whatever other places he shows up is going to be very different, and I think this actor is going to have a ball playing all these different versions of it.
Very
So
true.
does this also beg the idea that the majority of villains that we're going to see in the upcoming MCU films are going to be Kang variants? They haven't officially revealed who the villain is for the next Doctor Strange movie. I keep hearing it's going to be Nightmare, but nothing has been confirmed for that. We don't know who the bad guy is yet for the new Spider-Man film, No Way Home. They haven't revealed that yet. We don't even know who the bad guy is for the Eternals yet.
The bad
Or is
guy
it
for the
Deviants.
Eternals is the Deviants.
The Deviants.
The bad guy in Doctor Strange 2 is Shuma Gorath, who is one of the old ones from the comic books. Like he existed before like the Infinity Stones, before the universe was created, right, Lord Deathman?
Yeah.
Yep. And like that's basically like a guarantee. Like they've already basically said that. It was supposed to be Nightmare, but when they switched directors from what's his name?
From Derrickson to Raimi.
Yeah, to Raimi. Raimi changed things up and went in a different direction. So
Okay, allow me to hand in my geek card because I apparently missed those notifications. I apologize. But still, is there the idea that maybe, again, we've been talking about how Marvel combines the elements so well into different movies. Could we be seeing some of these other villains that we've established, like the one who, I'm sorry, I did not catch the pronunciation of that villain's name, so I'm not even going to try. Could he potentially be a Kang variant as well? So
Shumagorath is an ancient sort of chaos god from one of the dark realms. If Marvel manages to turn Shumagorath into a household name, which I know they can, that will be amazing. Everyone will know how to pronounce it shortly after Doctor Strange 2.
It's like a squid-looking creature,
yeah.
like in the What If trailer when you saw those tentacles like going after Peggy Carter or whatever. I think that was Shumagorath. So it's a crazy looking alien type like deal. Like that's the thing. So I mean, unless Kang like suddenly becomes a one-eyed squid looking character or whatever, then but no, that is a good point, Alexis, and I definitely agree with you. It'll be interesting to see all these different variations of Kang get dumped into the MCU. And I just wanted to point out, Cyber, if you don't mind, earlier Alexis was talking about the Kang kind of like filling the void of Thanos potentially in the MCU. I feel like where we're at right now, where we're going to be having the X-Men coming in a couple of years, we're going to have the Fantastic Four in Phase 5. I feel like there's no question that we're going to be getting Doctor Doom soon. If not Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, soon we're going to get Doctor Doom. And I feel like I don't know. I could be wrong. I feel like Kang could be a Thanos type villain, but I feel like we're going to get a Magneto down the road too. And I feel like we're going to get to a point in the MCU where we're going to be like awash with like Thanos level villains here pretty soon.
I really hope that what I basically want them to do is, Kang is the Thanos, Doctor Doom is the Loki. As far as levels of villainy, if you guys get what I'm saying. The hierarchy, yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I think already with this episode of Loki, Kang's quest and his journey makes Thanos's quest look like, we were just looking for Zsa Zsa Gabor's costume jewelry. Kang is just on a completely different level in terms of what he's trying to accomplish. And I do foresee the MCU heroes having to deal with an army of Kang. And even a kill to a Kang is not the end of it. He's just that tied up in the timeline.
Very true, very true. So to kind of change things up here a little bit, first we're going to go to some of these comments over here that we have just popped up. We want to get to those real quick. But after those, we're going to show the What If trailer for you guys, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But let's get to these amazing comments over here. We actually have a new person in the feed here, Fresh News 247. Want to thank you for commenting. I liked your comment there about a woman read would be interesting. I mean, we have had several different gender swaps and stuff like that. It's all good. We can see Marvel doing something like that. I mean, look at, the direction they've taken certain things in, how they've changed different things. It's really, just how things are, and that's totally fine. And then David R. has mentioned a couple cool things too. He's hundreds of generations removed, Kang. There's no need for matching race at this stage, which is a very good point. It doesn't matter what he looks like. That doesn't matter at all, because it's just, Kang can be anything because of how many generations he's been removed and how many different times he's been around, so to change it up and do something different makes it really enjoyable and interesting. And then also gender flipping, one of the most classic characters in all comics would be a shark jumping moment, which I totally agree with that, David. Totally would be like if they decided to make Reed Richards or the Reed that we were talking about into a woman, would be definitely that. And then also I enjoyed your comment saying they managed to get 90% of people saying Shang-Chi how they want. So when we were talking earlier about saying Shogara, or the character we were just talking about's name, like that would be that kind of similar situation there, because none of us can actually say it. And then imagine the mentality of someone who considered Thanos a chump. That's just a really good one too, because I'm sure there was definitely people out there that were MCU fans that definitely thought, Thanos was a chump. And, some people are probably right now with just this introduction to He Remains thinking he's a chump too. So, I mean, that's a very good point that, look at what Thanos did with the 23 films that he was a part of. If Kang is the new, Thanos, but it's going to be interesting to see what he does because he has been around a lot longer.
Cyber, I'm pretty hardcore, man, and I'm not afraid of anybody. But I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't want to go toe to toe with Thanos any day. I would not want to.
Don't be a wussy. Don't be a wussy. I go hand in hand with Thanos. He's got nothing against me.
There is one thing Kang has on Thanos. If Kang is able to is a multiversal creation, as we've set up here, Thanos is screwed because it's been proven in the comics and such that Thanos' main weapon, the Infinity Gauntlet, does not work outside of his universe. The Infinity Gauntlet only works in the universe that it's created in. Did you guys? I think I've mentioned this before. You guys watch the show Death Battle online?
No,
I never
have.
I've seen it occasionally. Yeah,
they did a great episode where they had Thanos fight Darkseid, and they proved that they were evenly matched until Darkseid was able to pull Thanos into his own universe, because you guys are aware that Darkseid basically created little avatars of himself and sent them out throughout the multiverse. When he pulled Darkseid into his own home universe, Thanos was powerless. He couldn't use the Infinity Gauntlet. It is not similar to with the TVA and all those Infinity Stones. Like, you take them out of their own timeline, out of their universe, they're paperweights. Side note: the conventions are opening back up. If I do not see Infinity Stone paperweights being sold at someone's table, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Well, just to point out, in the comics, Thanos is more powerful without the Infinity Stones and the Gauntlet than they show in like the MCU. Like, he's more powerful. He can do more things power wise and everything and whatnot. Like, he's no joke in the comics.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You don't want to tangle with him. And as far as Kang goes, what's interesting with Kang is that throughout like all the millions of years that like Kang has existed in all these different multiverse realities and everything and dimensions and everything, and with all his different like versions of Kang, he's never been interested in the Infinity Stones. Really, that's never been like his deal. Like, you think he'd care, but Kang doesn't really care about the Infinity Stones.
Which is good, because as awesome as the Infinity Stones are, we need to put them to bed.
Hey, how about how they handled the 10 rings in the Shang-Chi trailer? Like, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, again, props to the writers for actually figuring out how to make that work so well.
Right,
Very
without
true.
turning the Mandarin into Liberace.
I didn't even think about that, but oh my god, now that you said it, I cannot get that image out of my head.
Dude,
All
Lord
right.
Deathman.
That is permanently burned into my brain now. Thank you, Lord.
Sorry,
Death.
guys.
Tony Luong or whatever is a badass. Like, I'm sorry, but there's no this version of the Mandarin that we're about to get in the Shang-Chi trailer is a stone cold freaking killer, man.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Jeff, why don't we go ahead and run that What If trailer, sir?
Let's do it.
Yeah, peace. I love peace. I'd be out of a job with peace. Do we know each other?
Time. Reality. It's changeable.
Where you want to be? That's the question, isn't it?
Every universe is different. Each one unique.
Slow down a little bit. There's a few people in the room that don't understand. Not me, I get it.
Captain Carter.
Scheiße!
I am the Watcher. I observe all that transpires here, but I do not, cannot, will not interfere.
I guess I have to freestyle then.
We have you outnumbered.
A Ravager never flies solo. I said never flies solo.
Is that some kind of catchphrase?
You had me worried for a second.
Journey to face the unknown and ponder the question. What if?
All right, what if? So, after watching that, what are your guys' thoughts on the series? I'll just give a brief little explanation of how I thought about it. I'm not a huge fan of the art that they went with, the graphics and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm still very interested in seeing what they end up doing with the stories and changing them. Like, what if, Peggy was, Captain America instead of, Chris, him being Captain America and so forth and stuff like that. So I think that's a really interesting concept. I can't wait for that to start streaming in August. But what are your guys' thoughts on seeing that trailer? What are you looking forward to, or what do you find interesting about it? How about we start with you, Lord Deathman?
Absolutely. Love the trailer. Love the style of animation. I love the fact that it's action-packed, that these aren't going to be exposition sort of heavy shows. This is going to be where you can kind of do, you're not guilty pleasuring, but it's kind of like you're going to be able to watch this sort of unfettered, because the central concept is pretty well known. My heart breaks for DC right now, because not only has Marvel introduced in a friction-free manner a multiverse, but they kind of beat DC to the punch to it, and DC in the comic books on paper have sort of owned the concept of a multiverse with the Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? So, I mean, what we're seeing in Loki, what we're seeing with What If should really be happening over at DC with the Flash and all these parallel worlds and different versions of Superman. But, for whatever reason, they haven't been able to get it off the ground yet. So I'm just super excited to see this. I don't think that there is as well fed a fandom as MCU Marvel fans. And here we are again, just eating well is all I can say. I'm ready.
Lord Deathman, I think that's really interesting that you brought up DC in your comment. What's up, Cyber? I was just remarking to Lord Deathman's reaction that, like, I mean, honestly, at this point, I feel like I don't know what direction DC's going, or like the DCU is going, or whatever. I don't really get their. I don't know what kind of course they're planning on plotting. But so, like, at this point, Lord Deathman, in terms of how the game goes between them and like the MCU and Marvel, the Marvel is so far ahead that I don't know if they can ever catch up, to be honest with you. Although I will say that I really freaking like seriously hope and like pray to God that they make a Justice League 2 with Zack Snyder. I really hope they do, because I think that Darkseid, his version of Darkseid that we saw in the trailer for the Snyder Cut was like disgusting to me. Like, he just looked like crazy.
Yeah. I you know, and I'm not trying to create like a competitive environment between the two. I just wanted to say that every time I think about the multiverse in Marvel and how they're handling it in live action with the MCU, there's always a part of me that says, wow, this should be Barry Allen. This should be, he's the nonlinear man. He's the bridge into the DC Marvel universe. And crises, which have been a thing at DC since the 50s, right? Crisis on Earth S and Earth X. But here we are. Marvel's doing it with What If, which when I was a comic book collector was more of a touch and go, a hit or miss, I should say, type series in terms of some of the titles and the proposed questions were interesting, but some of them weren't, right? So I have a feeling that this is something I'm going to be able to dive in and out of without having to follow continuity. Like I said, maybe borderline guilty pleasure. This feels like, low pressure MCU that's just going to be really fun and action packed and entertaining.
Very much so, very much so. What do you think about the trailer, Taylor, and what are your thoughts on What If?
I'm really excited about it. The trailer just has so many images, and no idea of what any of the stories are really from that. But there's just so many images of so many different things going on. Everything, from Howard the Duck on up through everything else in the MCU. So I'm really excited about it. I like the animation. I like how the action looks. And it's just so wide open. It just allows these writers to just completely go to town and just do whatever they want without it screwing up the rest of the MCU, because it's an alternate history show. It's lost the word. It's like the Twilight Zone. The episodes aren't connected to each other.
Very much so, very much so.
So again, yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it looks good. I mean, the only action, again, all those different snippets, you could talk for days about just those little snippets. You don't know if they're in the same episode, if they're in different episodes. You don't know if the episodes, maybe they will connect, maybe it won't be a pure anthology. But I do know it's going to be a blast, and can't wait to see it.
It goes so quick, Taylor, in that trailer. I can't even keep track of what's going on.
Yeah, neither can I. That's my whole point. It's so much in there.
There's quite a few close-ups of some characters that, frankly, I couldn't recognize who they were.
Yeah.
No.
I think I saw one it looked like someone had a head in a jar, a la Futurama.
Yes.
I couldn't look, figured out who that was.
Was that Peter Parker?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
And who was Hawkeye? Like, somebody else was Hawkeye in the trailer. Who was that? Could anybody tell who that was?
I didn't even see Hawkeye. But then there was a Doctor Strange with no beard, apparently. And I thought that was his head in the jar there for a second. But I have, there's just so much going on.
I think there's actually multiple versions of Doctor Strange in the entire What If series. I think we're going to see, like, regular Doctor Strange that we know from the MCU. Then we're going to see Ultimate Doctor Strange, where he's like almost like an entity, like he's like a supreme being. At one point, but anyways,
it's been confirmed that we're going to see at least one version that it's Spider-Man with the cloak of levitation. That's seen in the poster.
Okay,
I'm just looking forward to the zombies.
Yes,
I don't
Marvel
know
zombies. Yes.
Did Thanos snap half the world into undead beings? That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool. So what are your thoughts on this, Alexis, on the trailer?
Firstly, little moment of respect. This moment respects silence, whatever, that this is going to be the final thing we see with Chadwick Boseman in the MCU. He did record all of his lines for this before he passed. So, just a little moment for him.
Good point.
Yes, it is.
But I am really excited to see it. Again, the zombies one I think, most excited for. But what I think I'm anticipating is, we were just talking about how you can't really gauge a lot of what's going on because of how fast it's going. And that actually is what's got me so excited. I want to go in wondering what stories they're going to tackle. I didn't want to have all of the episodes laid out for me beforehand. And obviously with the poster, we've got a ton of those. We've got Spider-Man with the Cloak of Levitation. We've got Vision with all 6 Infinity Stones. We've got Captain Carter. We got the Marvel Zombies. But I want to be kept guessing with how they're going to go with this.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think that out of what we could see in the trailer, there is going to be a lot of, like, very mysterious, circumstances surrounding each episode. I don't think we're going to have a lot of, give and go. I think it's just going to be, it's going to pop up. We're going to be like, okay, this is the episode that they're going to be doing. They're going to be doing this episode. I don't think there's going to be a lot of chatter in between these episodes because I think that Marvel's trying to kind of keep this under wraps because they want people to be really surprised or shocked at what they decided to go with. And just from that trailer, I feel that's kind of the first indication of that. So, totally, I think a lot of people are very excited by this series. And it's gonna be very interesting because we've known about it now for a couple of years now that they're gonna be doing it. So it's August can't get here fast enough so that we can actually see it. What are your thoughts on it, Jeff?
Again, based off what I could glean from it, just because of how quickly the trailer moves and pace, as far as pace goes, some of it I really couldn't tell what the hell was going on. But what I did see, well, for one thing, I absolutely love the What If logo at the end of the trailer. The MCU colored logo with the black screen. I love it. I'd love to get a t-shirt like that. I'm going to look for one when the show's over. And I love the scene they show after that where they show the classic What If comic book trope of the Watcher in space or whatever with the silhouette and everything. I like that. And as far as the show goes, I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I think that as far as the animation goes, I'm not saying that I'm overwhelmed by it or whatever. I think it's the best thing I've ever seen, but I do think it's important to note that I feel like they really went in a direction with the animation where they really want to be distinctly different than DC, than the DC animated stuff. The DC animated stuff is a lot more concise and a lot more fluid and linear in terms of how real life with their animation, as opposed to that What If trailer where the animation is more pastel, it's more dream world. You know what I mean? It's more fun, kind of and playful, which I like. But basically, I feel for me, the highlight that I took out of the trailer was seeing Michael B. Jordan pop up with Tony Stark. That was deep. I like that. I don't know how that's going to play out, but that's a really great collaboration. And I felt I like the Peggy Carter stuff. I like the fact that she has a sword. I think that's cool. I like the sword and shield deal. I like that. I like to see swords in general. I feel what I thought was really, really neat was when they showed the original 6 Avengers and they showed that scene from the original Avengers film where the camera spins around and shows the whole team, and then they flipped it around.
Iconic shot, yeah.
Yeah, and they switched the characters around, and they threw Black Panther in there, and different characters in there. I thought that was really neat. But just to second what Alexis said, I think it's important to point out that this is the last MCU anything that Chadwick Boseman will have had anything to do with, and I just want to point out that my and all of our prayers from the MCU's Bleeding Edge go to the Boseman family. And as far as I'm concerned, Chadwick Boseman is a goddamn lion of a man as far as who he was. Seriously, he was a lion of a man. What that guy dealt with and what he worked through and everything to make the films he made for the MCU, I don't think people even can really grasp what the totality of all of it. But so I think that was really nice of you to bring that up, Alexis, because I think it's a good point. We've never really had a chance here on this program to reflect on Chadwick Boseman, but just a great man. As far as I'm concerned, if you want a freaking role model in the Black community, a male role model, well, you got one right there. It's not hard to find, he's right there. But as far as the What If goes, I just think it's really hey, it's so different than anything else we've ever seen in the MCU that I don't see how it can't be awesome. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Thank you. Yes, very much so. Very much so. So, we have that conversation. King kind of gives his, backstory and stuff like that. And then basically he gives them an ultimatum Loki and Sylvie, saying either it could go this way or it could go this way. And, basically we end up, Loki and Sylvie have a fight. They do some fighting choreography and stuff like that. And, basically we end up seeing Loki being sent back to the TVA, and then all of a sudden Sylvie kills He Who Remains. So what is everyone's thoughts on how that concluded? After that fight sequence, like, what did you think of that fight sequence? And then what did you think about Sylvie actually killing He Who Remains? So what are your guys' thoughts? Let's start with you, Lord Deathman.
I loved it. I am a huge fan of playing around with time when you're telling a story, from as far back as, say, the French New Wave to Quentin Tarantino. I was like, wow, I think I just saw the end of Kang's story. It was told from a linear perspective that Immortus has just died, the glue who is holding the sacred timeline together, and he gives you that warning. There's this kind of Faustian element to it. You will be able to get your revenge, and you will be able to, get that feeling of satisfaction when you kill me. But when you do, you're going to unleash horror onto this multiverse. And I thought it was just brilliant, just brilliantly conceived to sort of start this story of this brand new character who may play a big role as a villain in the MCU from the vantage point of telling it from the end of his story. And the invention that Majors does in terms of creating a character here with He Who Remains isn't set in stone for what we're actually going to see when it comes to Kang in the movies and probably other series. So I just really thought it was genius.
Very good. Yes, I would totally agree. I thought it was very ingenious. I thought that the whole concept was an interesting way to end kind of their kind of segment in the episode. Basically giving this this giant fight sequence at the end and giving us this really great choreography and sword fighting and stuff. I thought that was really brilliant and fun as well. What did you think about that, Taylor?
Well, the action was very good. The choreography of the sword fight in there and the struggle between the two of them, one trying, not just the fight, but the discussion they were having at the same time, the debate they were having about what to do going forward. I thought that was all good. The whole ending itself, I'm a little bit torn on, frankly. To end a season on 8 million questions as opposed to any answers at all, I think is a little bit too much of a cliffhanger. Too much set up for the well, I don't know if it's set up for the next season or for the next movie. I don't know exactly, but the fact that we don't know what Sylvie is doing now, is she in charge now? Is she controlling the timeline? Is she the new one that remains? And then the fact that when Loki went back to the TVA, apparently everyone there has been reset and don't remember anything, or was that a different TVA created by all these branch timelines that I have no clue. It was very, very ambiguous, and I guess some people like that, but for me, when a television series ends its season, there should be some closure. Yes, they could be set up for the future, but there was literally no end of anything in this episode. Really, it was just more stuff. And as far as what's going to happen with Kane, I don't know. I was thinking, well, we've created the multiverse. Basically, they just created the multiverse by killing him. And we know that Doctor Strange movie is called The Multiverse of Madness. So I'm thinking that movie might be dealing with all the chaos created by the multiverse, but I don't think we're going to see Kang at that point. I don't think we're going to see Kang again. And again, this is just guessing. It could happen in different ways. But I think it's very possible that the next time we see Kang won't be until Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Quantumania. That version of Kang is dead, and he's not needed for the next several movies. But another version will come back in. I don't know what year Ant-Man is coming out, but I know it's after Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Hang on, I'm picking up pulling up the timeline here. Let's see here. Scroll down, scrolling too far. see here. Ant-Man and the Wasp was supposed to come out 2023.
Right. Okay, so yeah, it is definitely after Doctor Strange. So I don't know. So like you guys were talking about, maybe Kane's going to show up all over the place. But I think it's also a distinct possibility that we don't see him again, personified anyway, in any major way until Quantumania. But again, it could go either way.
I would agree with you, Taylor. I would. I don't think we'll really get any form of Kang until we get Quantumania.
Could be Easter eggs, though. Could be a lot of Easter eggs throughout the film.
Yeah.
So just because he's not there physically doesn't mean he's not a part of it in some way. So, I mean, you can see a lot of Easter eggs.
Even in the Eternals, there could be Easter eggs of Kang. You know,
there could be. That's a really good point, Taylor. There really could be, because let's be honest here. Not only Kang, but we could actually potentially see a very early version of Apocalypse in the Eternals movie, because if they go back to like ancient Egypt, when like the version of Kang that was Rama Tut existed.
You went back there for Insa bin Nur.
Yes, there you go. So like we could actually end up getting an X-Men villain out of the Eternals film too.
Yeah.
So we've got the list here. The movies coming out before Ant-Man and the Wasp. We got Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor: Love and Thunder, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and the Marvels.
Wow. That's a lot before Quantumania.
Yeah, Quantumania is not supposed to be till February 2023.
Does anybody remember when they announced the Loki series? People online saying, what's the point of this? This is a money grab. They got this character that people like, so they're just going to make some throwaway series of him on Disney Plus.
Yes.
Here it is. One of the hugest moments in the MCU, and it's going to have ramifications ad infinitum.
Let's excuse us for wanting more Tom Hiddleston. He's awesome.
Exactly.
Very much so. Very much so. How about you, Alexis? What did you think about that scene?
I had a feeling that was going to happen. Sylvie was too consumed by rage to listen to Loki. This is a character who, since she was a child, she has been in fear of the TVA. When, she has been lied to by anyone that she tried to trust. Even when we had that scene with the animatronic timekeepers, the pay no attention to this man behind the curtain scene, as I like to call it. And then you have Renslayer saying, it's like, trust me, I'll tell you what's going on. And of course she's lying to her. Sylvie is not capable of trusting anyone because everyone that she's known has tried to screw her over. So the idea that she's now finally has a chance to go after the person who's behind the source of so much of her pain. So, the fact that I mentioned this when we talked before about Sylvie's character. This is a character who not only is unable to trust anyone, but the only places she's lived in are apocalypse settings. She can't even make friends there because she knows those people are going to die. She has been so alone, and she's kind of screwed up because of it. And when she sees, our proto-Kang, as it were, she cannot fathom any other response other than kill him. She's listening to what he says, but she is unable to trust anyone because she's never been given a reason to trust anyone before. She just can't get over all the pain that she has been through her whole life. And while I do think she does care for Loki, though maybe not in the exact same way he cares about her, but she does care about him, her rage is more powerful than her love.
Very much so. Yeah, I totally agree there. Yeah, the rage and the revenge aspect of Sylvie really encapsulates her and really motivates her, and you could see that throughout the whole series, from when we first see her to the very end. You knew something like that was going to happen, like she was going to have to kill somebody, and that basically leads into the very end of the episode giving us, showing that these new branches are going out of the timeline, making the multiverse of madness, basically, as it's come to, be known. And then, Tom Hiddleston's Loki ends up in a alternate version of the TVA with Mobius not knowing who he is, and all of a sudden there being a statue of He Who Remains. Right. And so I think that's a very interesting way of ending the season to kind of go off into the next season and give this like really, kind of a cliffhanger a little bit, because we don't really get a full complete story.
It's a massive cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Anyone else get a little Planet of the Apes vibe from that ending?
Yes,
that was very. It was very much like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yes,
I would agree with that. Twilight Zone, yeah.
Yeah, and guys,
Rod Serling co-wrote Planet of the Apes.
That was a statue of Kang.
It was
in the comic book,
Kang.
accurate.
That's Kang.
And it's a moment of perfect horror when Loki looks across and there's no longer a statue of 3 Time Lords. It's now been collapsed into one Master of Time, and it's Kang. And he's not going to be able to convey this to anyone else because no one has any memory of it being any different or any different than it was before it was now. So I love that ending. Really, really thought that was just like the chef's kiss to just, again, an episode that had a ton of highlights in it and really just showed this. They pulled the writers from Rick and Morty, and those guys are badasses when it comes to multiversal fandom stuff. Yeah. And man, he earned every penny on this series. Every penny.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Michael Waldren.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Even the post-credit scene didn't give us anything. I was waiting for that post-credit scene, and all it says is Loki will return in season 2. I'm like, seriously? Are you screwing with me on purpose here?
Yeah, you know what? I really feel like they came into it really planning on trying to really make a very compact, very very kind of, I don't want to say quick, but I don't think they wanted to give us too much. I think they really the whole episode is 45 minutes with the credits. I think a lot of people are surprised by that.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that they made the last episode the shortest of all the episodes. And, you think, with it being the finale, you make it a little bit longer just to give you enough time to really, flush things out a little bit if you don't want to leave it on cliffhanger. But we know Marvel. Marvel likes to leave us on cliffhangers. They want us to be yearning for more. Yeah. And that's exactly what they did with this. So usually
definitely wasn't the typical MCU ending with the big CGI battle going on. It was much smaller.
And kind of reminded me more of the ending of Ant-Man and Wasp, honestly, with Ant-Man stuck in the quantum realm and all of his contacts being blipped out.
What about the insensual kiss? We haven't even talked about that yet. What's the deal with that? Like, come on, everybody. We had
You said consensual, right?
No,
consensual.
Incestual.
Wasn't incestual because they're both the same person. So more.
Yeah, they're not brother and my husband actually mentions so he's kissing himself. George said, "I don't have enough time to caffeine to pack this."
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I don't care. I liked it.
Of course, you did.
I'm glad they kissed, and I love the line from Loki that I expected him to say something. It's like, "I don't want the throne, I want you, or I want to be with you." He says, "I want you to be okay."
Oh,
that was such a good line. He's got a single tear rolling down his cheek. I loved it.
It almost broke my heart until Lord Deathman looked at me funny, and I pissed my pants.
How did he look at you? You can't see him.
It doesn't matter.
It's the black eyes.
Just
it's the horror
logo or whatever, like that he's got going on, just scares me.
Do you just feel this netherworld presence over your shoulder when you're like?
I am trying to trip you all up with that avatar, and I have to say, guys, I think the whole panel is right on point in terms of noticing things about the human drama between the two Lokis. But as a comic book fan and a lover of the world building, the minute I saw Kang, it was like everything else just went on mute. And it was like, kitten, meet laser pointer. And I'm just like following Kang, and oh, there's a love story happening off to the side here. So obviously I have to do a few more rewatches. They did great work. As always, Martino and Hiddleston interacting with each other. You know, I was not keen on the Sylvie character when she was first introduced, but she becomes a lot easier to love as you're going through Lamentus 1 and then Journey into Mystery, and now finally
Lord Deathman, are you having a midlife crisis or something?
I could be. Well, I'm immortal, so midlife is relative.
He hasn't reached midlife yet.
But indeed. But
Good
yeah,
point.
I really feel like it was a dirty trick they played on me in terms of bringing in Majors, because he really sucked all the air out of the room for me in terms of the episode. And I want to rewatch it just to make sure that I'm not missing those human emotional beats in terms of the interactions with the Lokis.
Very true, very true. So usually we do a Rotten Tomatoes segment on the MCU's Bleeding Edge, but we decided to change things up and do an IMDb version of what we usually do. So we're going to be doing that next, and then we'll close the show out with the Black Widow trailer, because next week the MCU Bleeding Edge will be doing a Black Widow review. Because since Loki's now over, we'll start getting back into the Infinity Saga, but we decided we want to start off with the Black Widow since it's a brand new movie just coming back in theaters. We want to go over that and talk all about that. So, Jeff, go ahead and talk about these IMDb comments, please.
Okay, so everybody,
for the record, it's IMDb.
Okay, thank you, Alexis.
Yeah, it's
Don't care.
database.
I would expect you to point that out, because you would be the person that would. Because Alexis does a lot of film reviews and stuff like that on the Rutledge and Broadcasting Network, so she would be very familiar. I'm not as familiar. So basically, these are the IMDb reviews, and the first one, you guys can either agree or disagree with this. This episode of Loki introduces a key player in upcoming MCU films and directly sets up many of the upcoming storylines in a well-written and well-acted way. This episode ends on a cliffhanger, but does say there is a season 2 in the works. The acting is great, and whilst there is little action, we get the action we do get is amazing. Some may be bored by all the talking, but this episode is so important to the MCU, it can't be missed. It also delivered for its finale and didn't shy away like WandaVision did. Overall, whilst you may be left confused and bored due to the pace, this episode is well made and has a big impact on the MCU. So go from there, guys. What do you think, Cyber? Who do you want to react first on that?
How about you, Lord Deathman? What did you think about that comment?
I think the review hits most of the important beats, but again, I may be kind of out on a limb with this, but I think people are really underestimating the importance of this episode of For All Time Always in terms of its future implications for the MCU, in terms of how we're going to be getting Kang as a villain and different variations of him, and this concept of the multiversal war, but also just looking at it on the level of speculative fiction and the scope, the grandiosity of the scale of what Marvel is proposing here, with, again, a villain who has just sort of had this invisible hand throughout all of existence. Everything you've seen in the MCU has sort of been orchestrated to satisfy his need to have a stable timeline. It was really like a Wizard of Oz level style reveal, and I can't think of having felt that way with any other franchise in a long time. So a lot of kudos to them. I'm also really stunned by the idea that I'm one of those guys that watches the action stuff. I was blown away by Black Widow's action sequences. Love the fight choreography in Loki for the most part. But like I said, once Kang came in the door and the elevator opened, I was so open to this pivotal episode in the MCU canon, which does most of its work through exposition, through incredible acting. It was just amazing to not have that, need a whole lot of action to drive it. Although for the action junkies, you do get a little bit of tit for tat with the two Lokis going at each other. So as always, I think the reviewers tend to be the reviews I've read on IMDb and in Rotten Tomatoes have tended to be a little bit I don't want to say self-serving, but they definitely downplay how great this series has been. They were much more appreciative of WandaVision because of the send-offs to early sitcoms, and I think that's a place where they understood that. They're like, oh yeah, I know the Dick Van Dyke Show, and I went through 4 or 5 years of media studies or critical review, so I'm going to give this a high grade. But when it comes to Loki, it's like, all right, this is esoteric sci-fi and fantasy. I like what the actors are doing because they're all at the top of their game and classically trained. But as far as the story, I feel like the reviewers have been a little soft on it.
Nice. I would totally agree with you on that whole point there. I totally agree. Like, yeah, when those doors open, you kind of everything just kind of like that. The kitty light going on Kang there, because it just like became so like that's like exactly what you're looking for. What are your thoughts, Taylor?
Well, as far as the review that Jeff read, I mean, guy sounds like he mostly appreciates the show, and I agree with him. It's a great show and it's very important. I didn't like that crack about WandaVision though. WandaVision is a fantastic show, and it did not shy away from anything, in my opinion. So, other than that, I agreed with what the guy wrote, with all the good stuff he wrote about Loki.
Awesome. Well, our wonderful guest Alexis needs to bow out at this moment, so we will give her a proper send-off. We want to thank you for being a part of the panel tonight. We enjoyed all your critiques and all your comments. You did a fantastic job, and we hope to have you back soon, eventually, and talk on another MCU amazing podcast with us guys. And if there's anything you'd like to say before you leave, feel free to say.
Thanks, Cyber. Yeah, sorry, guys. I don't know if you can hear my dogs upstairs starting to go a little berserk, but I should probably go ahead and get off here and go release them before they put a hole in the drywall. But again, I know you guys are going to talk about the Black Widow film, and you're going to be reviewing it next week. I did just review Black Widow with the Radulich Broadcasting Network. That is up on W2M. Go ahead and check that out if you got some time, or if you don't want to wait for these guys to review it. If you want to just get to our review, go ahead. I can promote my own stuff.
I see how it is.
We love the Radulich Broadcasting Network very much here on the MCU's Bleeding Edge. So Alexis, you can plug away.
Thank you very much. So in addition to those in the Midwest area, sorry, funny quote there from the chat. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, my jewelry company, will be appearing this weekend at Crypticon. That is a horror-themed convention. Really looking forward. So happy to be going back to work. And among the guests of honor there, we've got Michael Biehn and Billy Zane.
Wow.
So,
nice.
So going to have a lot of fun.
Love Michael Biehn.
Oh, totally.
Me too.
So, yeah, the only man to have a higher death count than Sean Bean. But anyways, yes. So, and of course, you can find Honeysuckle Rose Creations on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And be sure to check out the Radulich Broadcasting Network. So, gentlemen, I bid you a fond adieu. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I would love to be back on the show again before too long. So, catch you later.
We'll see you later,
Alexis.
Good night.
Have a good night.
All right. So Jeffrey, Jeffamundo, Jefferme, what do you think about what we've been talking about, sir?
Well, as far as the review goes, I feel like as a fan review, I feel like it covers the bases. It also delivered for its finale and didn't shy away like WandaVision did. See, I have to be on the same page with Taylor on that. I don't like them. I don't like them bringing up the finale of WandaVision like that, because I think that the finale of WandaVision was fine the way it was. I don't think that, like, I mean, I love WandaVision personally, but so that kind of takes away a little bit from it. But I feel like I would agree. I feel like definitely this is definitely impactful in terms of the whole MCU, and I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know if we'll see Loki and Doctor Strange 2, but I feel like there's going to be certain ramifications that are going to come from this series that are going to impact Doctor Strange 2. So from that perspective, I definitely agree with the review in terms of, you know, if you didn't like the episode, at least you understand that it's an important one.
Nice. Yeah, totally. I mean, that whole comment was pretty on point, I feel. Yeah, most definitely. And I think there's a lot more to the episode versus what that comment says. But at the same time, it just is I thought, a very well thought out comment altogether. So I understand it and I appreciate it at the same time. So is there any other one, sir?
Yes, most definitely. This is a very basic one, but I think it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think. I had low expectations coming into this episode because I was convinced that there wasn't enough time to kick off the multiverse correctly. Well, I was wrong. Marvel freaking crushed it. There you go. What do you guys think?
That was very on point. What do you think, Lord Deathman?
Yeah, I think that person nailed it, except for the low expectations, because Journey into Mystery was awesome, and I dared to dream when it came to episode 6, the finale. So other than that, I think that person was on point.
Yeah, very much so. I think so too. How about you, Taylor? Did you agree with that, or do you feel it's a little different? Or
No, I agree with it. I think Marvel did crush it as far as kicking off the multiverse.
Very much so, yeah. Totally agree.
Well, Cyber, if I could point out quickly, and I'd love to get you guys' reactions and actually get your like ratings of the episode personally, because I love hearing that kind of stuff. That person gave the episode a 10 out of 10. I'm seeing a lot of 10 out of 10s as I'm going down the list of the reviews, like along with the ratings. There's some 9 out of 10s, but mostly 10 out of 10s. If you don't mind, going around the table, starting with you, Cyber, and then, you know, over to you, Lord Deathman, and then to you, Taylor. Cyber, what would you give the episode, or what kind of rating would you give it?
I give it a 10. I thought it was really well conceived. I thought it was really well played out, and I thought it was a decent ending to a season versus the other two series, I would say. I think this is the best ending to all three of the Marvel series that they put out so far. I definitely thought it was better ending than Wanda, and I definitely thought it was a better ending than Falcon the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I have to echo that sentiment. I totally agree with Cyber. This was a 10 out of 10 episode for me. I thought it was probably one of the most satisfying pieces of MCU content I've seen ever, which is, again, in the middle of a week like Marvel has been having. That takes a lot of courage to kind of come out and say. But it was so well executed. I think it was satisfying for fans and diehards like myself who are crate divers and comic book readers. But I also have a feeling that casuals were able to jump right in and just really enjoy the fantasy and the action and the adventure.
Very, very much so. How about you, Taylor?
I give the episode a 9 out of 10. I think it was very, very well done. Everything that they did, everything that they tried to do was executed extremely well. But it wasn't a satisfying conclusion for the season for me. Not an entirely satisfying conclusion. I think it was a little bit too much of a cliffhanger for my particular taste. So that's why I give it a 9 out of 10.
Nice. Totally understandable. I mean, yeah, that ending can leave you kind of like with bad taste in your mouth, I would say. You know, where like it didn't like completely fully go full circle for the season itself. So I can most definitely get under that and understand that. So Jeff, do you have the Black Widow trailer ready, sir?
I do, and just really quick, I want to drop an 8.5 on this finale episode, just to kind of like match up with what Taylor said. I feel like I feel very similar to what Taylor said. I feel like I love where it went. Great episode, but as far as I'm concerned, I felt like episode 5 was a better episode. It was stronger than the finale. Like that's just how I feel. Like, I mean, that, you know, like, honestly, I felt like the pace of the finale was a little bit I don't know. I don't want to say boring, but can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's my
And now you just started moving again too. You were frozen there for a minute.
Sorry about that, guys. Technical difficulties happen. But anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I feel like the pace was a little bit like slow at times for me in the episode, but overall it was great. And I give the series overall a definite strong like 10 out of 10. But yes, as far as Black Widow goes, let's jump into this trailer and then we can do our initial reactions of the film, and which I think will be a lot of fun.
You don't know everything about me. I've lived a lot of lives. Before I was an Avenger. Before I got this family. I made mistakes choosing between what the world wants you to be and who you are. We have to go back to where it all started.
Where did you think I was all this time?
We have unfinished business.
My girls are the toughest girls in the world.
I'm sorry. We had our orders and we played our roles.
It wasn't real.
It was real to me. To me, you were everything.
Bring her home.
Put your seatbelts on. She's such a mom.
One thing's for sure. I'm done running from my past.
That trailer is fucking dope, man. I don't even care if I did already see the movie. That trailer is sick.
Yeah, I mean, that trailer, that's the better one of all the ones they put out for it. And the music's really well done. The scenes they decided to put into the trailer were just really great ones to put into it, too, because they were really amazing in the actual film. But all in all, I mean, the film itself, I would give a 9 out of 10, because I just think it was a really well done film, especially for, you know, since we've been waiting so long to get another film from Marvel, you know, waiting almost 2 years now. I give it a 9 out of 10 because I still feel there's a lot of plot holes that it did not fully, finish. I think there's definitely things that they didn't explain completely that I would like to see explained in the future, or, you know, even if, you know, Kevin Feige comes out and says, okay, this is what actually happened, or the writers or whatever. But all in all, the film itself was really decent. I actually just did my review for this for my YouTube channel earlier today, so that will be up in the next week or so. So if you guys get a chance, definitely check it out.
Yeah, you know, I love this trailer only because Marvel is always on their game when it comes to marketing stuff, especially with trailers and their clip game. But I felt like some of the early Black Widow trailers kind of cut it up in such a way that they leaned a little too much on the humor. So if you were going by what you thought the movie was going to be by like trailer 1 or some of the promotional clips that came out in the earlier part, you would be like, oh, is this a comedy? But this trailer, you know, effectively balances the incredible action, the drama, and the comedy in such a way that if you were not on board with the movie already, I thought this particular trailer would do that for you. I've seen the movie almost like 4.5 times now. So,
oh man.
I love that corner of the MCU, that Winter Soldier vibe, the sort of political thriller, espionage, geo hopping kind of thing. That is, you know, that is sort of my meal ticket in the MCU. And I'm a huge Black Widow fan, you know, which people say that, and I don't want to, you know, force people to break out their Black Widow fan cards from their wallets, but I've been reading her books for a while, since the Marvel Knights days. I think in the comic books around the mid 2000s, I really got into the character. So for me, I think with a small segment of the MCU fandom, we've always wanted to see a Black Widow film. We've wanted to see Natasha. She's not just the girl in back with the 2 guns, right? To us, she is this kind of super spy in this morally gray theater. She has the most complex and sort of layered backstory of anybody in the Avengers.
But Deathman, don't you believe, I don't mean to cut you off, but don't you think they could have really added a different layer if they would have just had a sex scene in the movie? Like with Black Widow?
If she could get out of that suit and you know, like that'd be a crazy sex scene.
Like
the dude who could get her out of that suit.
If OJ or whatever his name is would have tapped it real quick.
OJ.
You know, no, I don't
OJ
think we
was
needed.
In this.
Jeff, you just need to go watch the Avengers.
OT.
Yeah, Taylor. OJ's in the movie.
OJ is not in the movie. It's OT. And you know, I don't think that this movie needed you know, like I don't think we needed a sex scene interlude here. I thought it was extremely well executed, and the more times I've seen it, it has snuck its way into my top 10 MCU films. So yeah, I think they did a great job with it.
Nice. Just want to go over to the comments again here real quick before you go on, Taylor. David R. has given us a few other messages here that are just really insightful and fun. He brought out the point that at the end of Midsummer Night's Dream, the audience is told that if they didn't like anything about it, when they woke in the morning, remember, it was all just a dream. It reminded him of that, which I can see that being, you know, totally happening, most definitely. And then, incidentally, you must check out the actual meaning of The Wizard of Oz if you never have. It's equally mind-blowing. So I think that's kind of interesting, too, that he brought out that point. Because, I mean, I haven't actually researched the, you know, Wizard of Oz. But it is one thing that I have heard other people mention that before, that there's, like, a fuller meaning to that story from Frank Alban. And then he says, release the hounds. And then this episode set a new bar. 10 is insufficient, so he thinks it should be like 11 or 12, David? Maybe a 15? I'm not sure. And then he said, I would rate them the same. They had 2 different goals, and each performed perfectly beyond my standard, if perfect for me. Yeah, definitely. And then he just pointed out that Natasha is one of the most complex characters in all of comicdom. She is believably questionably against someone eternally and always comes off as a hero. Definitely agree with that. Yeah, she definitely is a hero. No matter, even when she was probably a Black Widow for the Red Room, I probably still would have thought she was a hero no matter what. That's just a really good point there, David. So thanks for sharing those comments with it. It's really great. So
David
Taylor,
R's been on fire all night. This is a badass right there.
Dang, yeah, that I would agree. How about you, Taylor? Give us your go on Black Widow trailer.
Well, David R. reminded me of another line from A Midsummer Night's Dream that I often recite as I'm reading people's comments on the internet, and that is, Lord, what fools these mortals be, because they're usually wrong. And I've seen a lot of really wrong-headed negative comments about Black Widow online, and I don't know where these people come from. Some of the stuff they're complaining about is not even in the movie. But be that as it may, I absolutely love Black Widow. The movie was absolutely fantastic. It was powerful. It was entertaining. The action was on point and huge. The story was great. The acting was great. All of the actors and the characters were fantastic. I can't say enough good about it. It was just terrific. And I've only seen it twice.
I've only seen it the once so far, but I
you guys got to catch up.
I definitely
4X minimum.
That's how I was with the Star Wars films. I did 6 minimum for the Star Wars films.
Oh wow. Okay.
So 4 is nothing really for me. Like 4 is like that's mediocre. So 6. I'm going for 6.
Okay.
I'm gonna outbeat you, Lord Deathman.
I see where you're coming from, man. I see where you're coming from.
Great. So yeah, that's great, guys. That all those were really great, insightful. That's totally. I would agree that this in a whole, Black Widow was a very decent film, very well done.
Oh, we lost Cyber.
We lost Cyber.
We knew he was going to drop. It's okay. You could see he was trying to rush things, but I'm going to go ahead and just leave my quick comment for Black Widow, and then we'll get the hell out of here, guys. Cyber's iPad or whatever died. Cyber, we love you, brother.
Yeah, man. Great talking to you, man. If you can hear us.
Most definitely. Great job, Cyber. You did a great job, man.
Great job.
So anyways, again, I just want to mention that as I already dropped the bottom of the screen, if there are any pink or green-haired Captain Marvel fans out there checking out the show, please drop your digits in the comment section for me, and I will get back to you. Anyways, as far as the Black Widow film goes, I'm still basically where I was at on Saturday when we did the review on the Podcast of Champions, which was a great show. We did a great job. And just for those of you out there who don't, realize yet or anything like that, these guys are, as I mentioned earlier, from sakar.freeforums.net, the Podcast of Champions YouTube channel podcast, Taylor, Lord Deathman. I've been coming on their reviews recently, and we pull off some really nice shows on the weekends, and we have a good time. And we did a great show on Saturday, but we did a really nice Black Widow review. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just still very lost, just like you, Taylor. I don't know what these people, these YouTubers, or these people in the media. I don't know what they wanted from the Black Widow film, what they expected or whatever. I don't get it. It delivers. I mean, if you're an MCU fan, then you should be happy. I don't really, as far as I'm concerned, look, I'm not a film expert, but I think they covered all their bases. I mean, I think that everybody involved in producing that film did a great job. And the little tiny things I'm hearing, the fan base, the fandom complain about, how they handled Taskmaster in the film and everything and whatnot, I think is kind of little piddly, cheesy kind of stuff. It really doesn't. Overall, it's a great film. I envy you, Lord Deathman, having watched it 4.5 times. I only saw it the once.
Yeah, it gets better with each viewing for me. I noticed more details. I love the third act, which people complain was another MCU CGI fest. But look, man, if you can get your third act to operate both horizontally and vertically, come on, you've already won. All that stuff where she was jumping off of platforms and fighting soldiers in midair, that's the stuff we live for in the genre, man. So I don't know, what anyone else wants.
Go ahead, Taylor.
Well, no, and that's one complaint that's idiotic. There's another one complaining that there was too much family drama. I don't go to MCU movies to watch family drama. There was 15 minutes of family drama in the whole friggin' movie. Man. All right, that's called character development. It's called plot. What the heck did you want?
Yeah,
backstory. Guys, narrative.
I felt like it was sort of depressing the way that the movie started with the whole scene with them having to leave America to go back to Russia or whatever.
It was powerful.
Yes, it was. And I feel like it set a tone for the film that was, if it wasn't there, wouldn't have been there. You know, and I felt like it established something very intrinsic for those characters that you relate to later on when they're all back together.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more, Jeff. The family drama, and Taylor, that family drama stuff was needed to help flesh out the ensemble so you could find out a little bit more about them and actually care about them. That's what that family drama did for me when I was watching it. And I think there's headroom to still have a franchise. I wouldn't mind seeing more prequel missions to see more of her career as a soldier and a spy.
I was hoping they were going to make it a trilogy. I really was. When I first knew about the film, I was hoping they were going to do 3 with her. But apparently she doesn't want to play the character anymore. So, you know, I mean, I feel like if they made more films with her, I would never be unhappy with it, because I feel like I'm sad to see us lose ScarJo like in the MCU. I really am. I mean, she gave us 10 plus great years playing that character. And like you said, Lord Deathman, you know, she's an interesting character. Black Widow is. And I feel like they did a great job casting Scarlett Johansson to play the character. And I feel like for the tone that they set in that movie with the family drama, the adult themes that the film had going on, the kind of graphic like aspect of like some of the violence and like the death scenes and stuff like that. I feel like with Black Widow from the comics, you need that kind of environment.
Yeah. And they delivered. You know, Disney can sometimes shy away from darker themes and violence, but Yelena's kill on that senior Black Widow who had the antidote, I was like, that was pretty vicious. That was pretty graphic. You know, the younger widow who died falling off of that, you know, whatever that column thing was they were swinging across on. You know, it really is lost potential not to be able to revisit a chapter 2 with Black Widow where she might encounter the Winter Soldier and you know, from those stories from the Winter Soldier movie, or even to look at Budapest fully fleshed out, because that sounds like it was a batshit 10 days for Clint Barton and Natasha Romanoff trying to get out of Budapest and away from Dreykov. I would have loved to have seen more of that stuff. And as a first entry, this movie tops what like a lot of third entries would be. You know, like it was approaching that kind of level of quality.
Taylor?
Well, I agree that this movie is definitely in the highest level of quality. As far as going back and doing a trilogy goes, I wouldn't mind. I mean, I'm always happy to see more Black Widow. But I also don't mind if they don't do that or wouldn't do that. There's so much more going on in the MCU right now that really don't need to look backwards at that. And I think this movie stands on its own. It's fabulous. And I do expect to see more Black Widow in the form of Yelena going forward in the MCU, which I think is great too.
I actually heard somebody tell me earlier today that she's not going to be Black Widow, that she's just going to disappear after the Hawkeye series or whatever, this and that. I don't believe that for a second.
I don't know what's going to happen. We know she's going to appear at least once more based on the post-credits scene. So we're definitely going to see her somewhere.
She's very talented. I'd like to see more of her. And I'll tell you, you know, I feel like you're right, Taylor. If it's going to be a standalone film, it's a great standalone film. It really is. It stands on its own. I have a hard time even trying to rank it right now in the MCU, just because I want to let it breathe. I want to let it live. You know, like as a movie, like why it's still.
And that's a good policy, Jeff. I'm too quick to rank and then re-rank. I like the methodology.
I mean, listen, Lord Deathman, I mean, I think you're very accurate and very on point and very well put and well versed when it comes to your comments and your contributions to the show and everything, and the other shows I've done with you and everything and whatnot. I respect you, just like I respect Taylor and I respect Alexis, and I love Cyber to death. But at the same time, I feel like we all kind of, as MCU fans, this is something we all universally experience to some degree, maybe some of us more and some of us less. And that's the fact that we all are human and we react initially to these productions, to these movies, to these TV episodes. And then over time, the influence of other people's opinions and stuff like that, and like watching the episode again, for instance, or watching the movie again, it affects your opinion. It affects your outlook on like your initial take of like, for instance, of the Black Widow film. You're influenced a little bit over time. So like, hey, I'm just like you. I've definitely changed my mind about certain aspects of MCU stuff before in the past after like time has passed. Like I thought it was really kind of like very like humanistic on your own part to be willing to revise your take on Lamentus with Loki, with the series, with episode 3, like you did in the Podcast of Champions review on Saturday, because I feel like you didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Something told me that I was a little too quick to judge. And when you look at the whole tapestry that they were unfurling there, it fit in there perfectly. It was not just a mindless sort of detour or digression. It really added to the story.
Well, and that falls back into like, like Taylor's mentioned before, there's no such thing as filler episodes when it comes to these shows. You either appreciate and enjoy, the setup, the build up, the world building and everything that's necessary in some of these series in order to make them flow and make them work. Or you jump the gun and become, negative about the stuff. But overall, at the end of the day, gentlemen, we've been getting after it for over 2+ hours, not even including our non-live segment where we were just like talking like to nobody. So I just want to, for the MCU's Bleeding Edge, for Cyber and for myself, I just want to thank Taylor first, and Lord Deathman very much for joining us tonight on the show. You guys were great as always. We love having you. And
thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Great.
Oh, no problem. Taylor, thank you for finding the time, man. I know you have a busy schedule. Lord Deathman, audio or visual or however we get it, man. We'll take you, brother.
I will remain a man of mystery. I appreciate you guys accommodating my eccentricities there.
That's all right. Hey, it's all good, man. I mean, at the end of the day, since you've already got the connection and everything with with Hades and shit, I mean, you and I might need to connect sometime down the road, because like I've been known to trend towards the negative part of like the heaven to hell dynamic.
Look, I can get you a free pass if you die once. I can get you back. Anything beyond that is on you.
Well, Alexis, we love you very much. Thank you very much, as always, for your contributions. Perry Ramsey, I hope you're doing all right, brother. David R., you are my friend. You are my brother. Thank you so much for handling your business in the comment section, as always. And I'll talk to you soon. And for the MCU's Bleeding Edge, and for Lord Deathman, and for Podcast of Champions, and Sakar.freeforums.net, and Taylor and Cyber, we are out of here. Peace.